Experts who have reviewed Dr. Weintraub's work say while the debate continues, the study should open the door to further research as to whether obesity can be treated in the same way as other chronic illnesses. Regina Blakely, CBS News, New York.
A 9-year study published in the latest issue of Pediatrics magazine found that many infants are injured or killed in car accidents each year because they rode in adults' laps instead of car seats. Researchers told parents to avoid removing a child from a car seat just because he or she may be crying. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, President Bush arrives in Munich for the economic summit. Also, a valley of prayer and meditation braces for disruption from above. And Bill Geist on the trials and tribulations of eating crustaceans.
There's a certain itch that's so private, most people will only discuss it with their doctor. Fortunately, now you can get new Anusol HC1 ointment. Over the counter, with the same prescription strength doctors have prescribed most.
Boy, this couch weighs a ton. Where does it go, Miss Lansbury?
Oh, right there, please. Wow. If I lifted that, I'd need Bufferin for the aches and pains afterwards.
You really believe in Bufferin?
I certainly do.
It's strong, huh?
Extra strength Bufferin has the strongest dosage of aspirin that you can buy. And I've discovered that the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin stomach upset.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of Bufferin? And for nighttime aches, pains, and sleeplessness, try Bufferin AF Nighttime. It's aspirin-free.
I'd like to talk to you about an invisible problem. The invisible bacteria that cause denture odor. Fortunately, antibacterial Efferdent kills those odor-causing bacteria for clean, fresh dentures.
Antibacterial Efferdent.
It's nothing serious. It only wakes me up a couple of times a week. It really doesn't affect me. I avoid foods that are fried or spicy. I can deal with it. I just take antacids.
If you have frequent heartburn symptoms like acid indigestion or burning in the chest, talk to your doctor. These may be signs of a serious medical problem. Your doctor has treatment plans that can help.
It's only heartburn. I should learn to live with it. Right?
Frequent heartburn. Isn't it time you talk to your doctor?
President Bush arrived in Munich, Germany today for this week's economic summit. But first, there was a stopover in Poland. Randall Pinkston reports on the president's day.
President Bush plunged into his work at the Munich summit, tackling a touchy topic, unresolved trade disputes with French President Francois Mitterrand. The gathering of the Group of 7 industrial leaders, the first since the collapse of the former Soviet Union, is not expected to yield any breakthroughs, but will produce a paper blizzard of promises. En route to Munich, President Bush stopped in Warsaw to attend the funeral mass of Polish pianist and statesman Ignacy Paderewski. While there, he mixed tough talk on trade with the present for Polish President Lech Wałęsa. Mr. Bush said if Poland complies with International Monetary Fund requirements, a $200 million U.S.-provided stabilization fund can be converted for other needs.
I am proposing that once Poland is back on track with the IMF, that we make that fund available for other uses, perhaps to finance Polish exports or to help capitalize banks, to support new businesses.
Behind the scenes, the president was reportedly irritated with Wałęsa's decision to cut a special tariff deal with European nations. An administration spokesman says Wałęsa took note and promised to resolve the dispute. It may be easy for the U.S. to resolve disputes with Poland. The U.S. has provided $4 billion to that nation since 1989. But beginning tomorrow, it will be a different story for the Group of 7 leaders who are independent and face long-standing differences on a wide array of trade issues. Randall Pinkston, CBS News, Munich.
Two nations that usually play leading roles at the economic summits are definitely not in the giving mood this time around, as we hear from Mark Phillips.
There was a time when these two men could be expected to show up at an economic summit carrying bags of money to throw at the world's problems. But as the phrase goes, that was then, and this is now. Now the various republics of the former Soviet Union are crying out for aid to pull them through their teetering post-communist period. And the budding capitalist, Russian President Boris Yeltsin, will go to Munich to observe the deliberations with outstretched palms. But now as well, the U.S. recovery keeps slipping out of gear, and the Japanese are still firmly in the grip of their own recession. It's become very much a question of you go first.
Well, the Americans, of course, are going to pressure the Japanese to give a big response because the Japanese are the ones who really do have the big pockets, and the Japanese have been resisting.
The Japanese have been resistant not only because their pockets are less deep than they used to be, but because they're still trying to get back the Kuril Islands taken by the Soviet Union at the end of World War II. Yeltsin says he wants Japanese aid before he'll discuss the islands, despite being pressured on his recent Washington visit to give them up. The U.S. advocacy, though, was appreciated by Tokyo and seen as part of the process of making nice in otherwise rocky U.S.-Japan relations.
I'm immensely grateful for the President's firm support of Japan's position on the Northern Territory issue.
The two hobbling economic giants, the U.S. and Japan, not only go into this economic summit with their own internal problems, the growing U.S. trade deficit with Japan and the continuing complaints about an uneven economic playing field between the two may well make reaching any cooperative effort all the more difficult. How to solve the problem? At one point in the Miyazawa visit, a little baseball diplomacy was suggested, a real World Series between a Japanese and American team.
I hope there may be days when these two really plays the game, but I'm sure you will win. That one.
It's a time when diplomatic responses seem easier than economic ones. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
In recent weeks, undeclared presidential candidate Ross Perot has been preaching the message that America's strength lies in its diversity. It's a message that's getting a mixed response from minority voters. James Hattori reports.
Ross Perot's Tear Down the Bureaucracy and Build Up the Economy campaign plays well across America. But with so few non-white faces among his crowds of supporters, some wonder how broad Perot's appeal truly is.
Most of your rallies have been mostly white, relatively few black and brown people.
Perot says he isn't out to seduce any special interest group, minorities included, as evidenced by his opposition to affirmative action quotas.
We would love to have a country where everybody could just compete for the jobs fairly and equally.
Still, according to the polls, he's managed to capture nearly 1/4 of all African-American voters who usually vote overwhelmingly Democratic.
Our political leadership today has taken the black community for granted.
Reverend Sam Steele and Chuck Esters met with Perot when he quietly visited Los Angeles recently and were attracted by his message of economic empowerment.
I believe Ross Perot is a better role model than Bush or Clinton. I really believe that.
Black voters aren't looking for anything different. They want a fair shake. They want access to capital. They want to be in control of their economic destiny.
But many minority voters still have doubts.
He seems to be saying what everybody wants to hear right now. And I just like to see what he's really about.
Just as the Texas billionaire's criticism of government and the economy seems to cut across racial lines, so too does the anxiousness among curious voters still waiting for Perot. James Hattori, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And a report in the upcoming issue of Time magazine says contractors working for Ross Perot blew up part of a Bermuda coral reef 6 years ago despite the lack of a permit. The report says Perot wanted to be able to dock his yacht closer to the door of his beachfront home. Perot told Time he assumed that a local contractor had gotten the necessary permits. Democrat Bill Clinton took a break from campaigning on this holiday weekend, but with the Democratic National Convention just a week away, he'll be busy in the days ahead. Bill Plant joins us with a look at what Clinton might do this week. Bill?
Well, Connie, expect a vice presidential choice to be the big news this week from the Clinton campaign. He's been thinking about this for a long time, playing it very close to the vest, but members of his staff have mentioned some possible choices, such as Senators Bob Kerrey, Harris Wofford, Joe Lieberman, and Jay Rockefeller, any one of whom would probably be delighted to be called. But the most likely possibilities, as of late last week, seem to be Indiana Congressman Lee Hamilton, who is regarded as an expert in foreign affairs and commands great respect in Congress. Clinton met with him last week to discuss the Veep job, but Hamilton does support those restrictions on abortion upheld by the Supreme Court last week, and Clinton does not. Also under serious consideration, Tennessee Senator Al Gore, being considered and pushed even, despite the fact that he's another Southern moderate, because he's also in his mid-40s, like Clinton. And a lot of people on the Clinton staff feel that the two of them together would make a very strong case for generational change at the top. And also, Connie, either Hamilton or Gore are seen as very good counterpoint to Dan Quayle in that one vice presidential debate, the peak of attention. But, of course, there is always the possibility that we will be surprised.
All right. Thank you, Bill Plant. A quiet air controversy in the Rockies when we come back.
To get rid of her gray, my wife can spend 40 minutes. But I discovered the 5-minute hair coloring.
The revolutionary discovery called Just for Men from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men and in 5 minutes shampoo out.
Gray is blended away. The look of my natural color is back in 5 minutes. That was me, and it won't fade or wash out.
My hair takes forever, but you look great in just 5 minutes.
The look of your natural color in just 5 minutes with Just for Men.
It could start in your office, in your home, over lunch. But now, wherever heartburn starts, this is where it ends. Introducing new Maalox Heartburn Relief Formula. No ordinary antacid works like this one to put out heartburn.
There's a certain itch that's so private, most people will only discuss it with their doctor. Fortunately, now you can get new Anusol HC1 ointment. Over the counter, with the same prescription strength doctors have prescribed most.
Hi, and it's code for 148 nursing and it's Fowler her nursing. 81 clear. 8814 clear. You two is the third nursing.
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
Picture this. You're the mother to 17 children with very special needs, and this is what a day at the market looks like. Think you've got problems? Meet Camille. 60 Minutes tonight.
The collapse of the Soviet Union has the Pentagon closing bases overseas and bringing a lot of high-tech hardware back home. And that's touched off a battle over noise. In our Sunday cover, we visit residents of southern Colorado who fear that the price of peace may be quiet.
I've seen them come right down through that and then right over this building. You can actually see the pilots' faces.
For years, pairs of low-flying jets have crisscrossed the valley on practice flights. But now the military has a new plan that could turn the skies above this quiet place into a simulated combat zone.
How would you like every day to have 12 jets 100 feet over your head for as long as 30 minutes doing exercises? I mean, how would you like twice a month to have large-scale battle exercises with as many as 50 jets, fighters, transporters, bombers 100 feet over your head?
The Colorado Air National Guard says the changes are a sign of the times. American forces are coming home from the Cold War with their high-tech F-16 fighters. They need more space.
20 years ago, during the Vietnam time frame, it was adequate to train in airspace this big. Now, with modern weapons and radars, where the bad guys can reach out and touch you from far greater distances, tactics need to take place at much greater ranges.
The war game plans have especially angered the religious groups here. Zen Buddhists, Hindus, and Roman Catholic monks treasure the valley's natural beauty in silence.
The noise of a jet engine is 140 decibels, which is about like a gun going off right by your ear.
Brother Thomas helped his fellow monks build this remote monastery with his own hands. Air war above, he says, may destroy everything.
This is life or death for us. It is not merely a political issue that we want to get involved in. Monks, by their nature, don't get involved in merely political questions.
Monks and small-town ranchers have banded together, forcing the military to begin an environmental impact statement.
We are sensitive to our impact on the population because all of our pilots are citizens here, so we consider Colorado our home.
But the pilots say they don't have much choice. A new Denver airport is squeezing their existing space, and somebody's got to give.
I understand the feelings, and because everyone, I think, wants peace and quiet. Somewhere in there, there's a trade-off. We need to be able to operate, to train, because we have to have a trained force that's ready to go to any conflict without losing any of those valuable resources, not to mention pilots' lives. That's my responsibility.
But the battle has just begun. And in this place where many people have come to seek peace, they wonder about the reminders of war.
You know, our military is charged with defending America and her interests, not destroying us. And what this presents is destroying, is sacrificing America, and we're saying, is this really necessary?
And the residents of southern Colorado aren't the only ones worried about the noise. The military wants to open up airspace over more than 24 areas around the country.
Tried Domino's new Better Than Ever pizza yet? Wait till you get a load of more melted cheese. Wait till you taste our bigger, better toppings. Wait till you sink your teeth into our more tender, tastier crust. But why wait? Come into Domino's now for our 99-cent carry-out special. With every Better Than Ever pizza at the regular price, get a second one-topping medium for just 99 cents.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
Come in now for our 99-cent carry-out special.
I don't know about that TV8 news. It's not enough they got the dirtiest news cars in town. I guess that's because they go everywhere. But they've also got this huge truck. It's called News Star 8, and it's so big it won't even fit in the wash. It's got a satellite dish that can send pictures from anywhere in the country, wherever news happens. It's unbelievable! And they're the only ones in town who have one of these.
News Star 8, live satellite uplink.
And I keep telling them, I don't do dishes!
Your breakfast, sir.
This new Kellogg's Frosted Bran is quite sensible. Crispy flakes with whole wheat and bran, lightly frosted for a taste.
A taste that's delicious! I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I love it!
And new Kellogg's Frosted Bran has less sugar than you'd imagine, but the taste, it's out of sight.
We've got to stop serving this. New Kellogg's Frosted Bran, wildly delicious, sensibly good. Sensibly good.
Andre Agassi today became the first American in 8 years to win the Wimbledon tennis championship. In a 5-set final, Agassi took the first Grand Slam title of his career by beating Goran Ivanisevic of Croatia. Agassi took home a check for more than $500,000. When airlifted food supplies reach the besieged capital of Bosnia, residents don't take their time in getting their hands on them. As Bob Simon tells us, to delay could be fatal.
People in Sarajevo have learned a new way of walking. You can spot it at intersections when they cross the street. It's not due to oncoming traffic. There's very little traffic. Though when cars do come by, they're also moving rather quickly. It's because of the snipers in the hills. Snipers who have a clean shot at anyone not blocked by a building. People take the chance because they have to, because they have no food at home. There's not much food in the streets either. Relief supplies have not yet reached this part of town. But homespun black markets have sprung up, run by Bosnians who've grown some vegetables in their backyards. These onions are going for $15 a pound. But the most strategic materiel in Sarajevo right now is flour. The most important strongholds, the bakeries. Some of them are underground. This battle, this war, is about keeping a city alive. And whatever there is in the way of firepower or willpower, Sarajevo doesn't have a chance without bread.
This is the center of the old section of Sarajevo, the famous and charming Market Square. Before the war at this time on a Sunday afternoon, it would be crowded with tourists and townsfolk, out for a stroll, out for a long lunch at the Oriental restaurant.
It's been left to the pigeons now, to the pigeons and to incoming mortar rounds. The busiest places today were the graveyards. 580 people were buried in this park last month. Different religions, different ethnic origins. All they had in common was that they were killed in Sarajevo in June 1992. Some were fighters, some were not. But anyone who dies in this city is honored as a hero. 16 graves were dug today. The bodies were passed hand to hand as mortars exploded nearby. In Sarajevo, even the dead aren't safe. This woman's husband was a teacher, 44 years old, killed yesterday. My children, my orphans, she cried out, come to your mother. Don't put him down, she pleaded. I want one last look. This was Sunday, a day to bake bread and bury the dead. It was a day like any other day in Sarajevo. Bob Simon, CBS News, Sarajevo.
Over the past 30 years, more people have taken one brand of sleep aid more than any other for a good night's sleep. Sominex. Sominex has the one ingredient doctors recommend most to help you fall asleep safely without worry. Safe, simple Sominex.
My husband's on the phone. He's going to faint.
Maine to California.
Oh, God, you're like...
People just like you. Win thousands, win millions. Out of the blue. Miracles can happen for you.
Holy cow.
Publishers Clearinghouse, the house where dreams come true.
Everybody needs some money sometime.
Only Western Union can get money to over 16,000 locations in minutes. Nobody else even comes close. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
It could start in your office, in your home, over lunch. But now, wherever heartburn starts, this is where it ends. Introducing new Maalox Heartburn Relief Formula. No ordinary antacid works like this one to put out heartburn.
And finally tonight, we have a recipe for successful summer dining. Our Bill Geitz goes one-on-one with his supper.
Of all the joys of summer, the greatest are at the seashore. The water, the boats, seafood. Eating lobsters may be one of summer's pleasures, but for a lot of us, it's certainly not one of the simpler ones. The placemats always say it's easy, but for what other kinds of food do you need instructions, not to mention protective outerwear? Even sophisticated Hollywood types are challenged. Isn't the whole idea of crustaceans that their hard shells keep them from being eaten by predators like us? Gorgeous presentation. Now what? It's so complicated. Ooh. This is like lobster's revenge. Next time, I'm ordering lobster salad.
It's like a battle, so you just get on the field and do it.
It's easy for shore natives like Joe Mandarino, but I grew up in the landlocked Midwest eating uncomplicated meatloaf.
No, they get...
At best, it's kind of low yield. I think people eat lobsters in restaurants so they don't have to drop them in boiling water themselves.
Sometimes you feel bad. When the fish really could feel the pain, but you get over that. Nah, I don't think so. I mean, once over like that's it, quick.
But the biggest problem remains eating the lobster. It can be maddening. I think the tools are simply insufficient for a job of this magnitude. Eating seafood isn't always pretty.
And that's our news. Join Bill Plant later tonight with the CBS Sunday Night News. I'm Connie Chung in New York. I'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you for joining us, and for all of us at CBS News, good night.
Experience CBS News.
This is CBS.
Thanks Central Iowa for making the 10th annual TV8 Blood Donor Day a huge success. Blood supplies can run dangerously low during the summer months, but with your help, we've given the Blood Center of Central Iowa an important boost to meet the increased summer demands. 663 donors were seen, and over 570 pints of blood were drawn at Valley High School and the TV8 studios. Thanks again, Central Iowa, for giving the gift of love.
Wake up to the first word on what's happening right here in Des Moines. Turn to TV8 Morning News at 6:30 with Liz Meridian and John McLaughlin. See what the day ahead has in store for you. Weekday mornings at 6:30 on TV8.
I'm Paula Zahn.
And I'm Harry Smith. Keep up with the day's top stories.
Plus the latest in consumer news, health, and money matters.
Watch CBS This Morning weekdays at 7.
It's breakfast for your head.
This is